the offensive line has always been my number one priority beyond quarterback. You got quarterback, offensive line. That's how I've always looked at football, and I still look at it that way. I will say this year with the 49ers, it feels like the O-line, even though they're not elite and they need to get to that level or at least top 10, the defensive line is worse than the offensive line. So even though the offensive line is the priority, the defensive line is worse. So the 49ers are going to have to figure out how to strengthen both of those groups this offseason. That's the challenge.
But the thing about D-line is like, what do they need? You can get platoon players on your D-line. You need a defensive tackle who can stop the run. You can get that in round 6. I mean, there's a lot of really good athletes that play defensive line because it pays. But if you want to get a really good left guard, which the Niners need, Aaron Banks, free agent, probably won't re-sign him. You're not going to find – you might find him late, but chances are 3-down guy, 1,000 snaps, first 3 rounds. Last year, they drafted Dominic Pooney in round 3, one of their best draft picks since they've gotten here. That guy looks like one of the best right guards in the league right now. Now they need to do it again. They need to draft the left guard to complement him, and he needs to be just as good. That's to me, their number one priority. And then they got to get a center, and then they got to get a right tackle because Jake Brendel and Colton McKivitz would never, ever start for Detroit or Philadelphia unless there were like 3 injuries.
You know, Tom Jensen, a mutual friend of ours, thinks the 49ers believe they have their answer at center in Matt Hennessy. When they signed Matt Hennessy, they were really complimentary of him. So don't be surprised if they don't get a center in this draft and they roll with Matt Hennessy.
I don't like that because to me, they're trying to look for their next Jake Brendel. Jake Brendel, they got off the scrap heap. No offense. And Matt Hennessy, they got off a practice squad. So why don't you go draft a center in round 2 or round 3? Why don't you go draft a guard in round 2? That's how seriously you need to take this position. Don't go say that there's this former 3rd-round pick who had a bunch of injuries and was chilling on someone's practice squad that they didn't know was actually good and you're going to get it. Like, no, don't do that. Take it freaking seriously. 2nd round. And what's crazy about the Aaron Banks pick, they tried. They missed. I believe later on that draft, Creed Humphrey went. Like, they could have. Or Quinn Miners, who was an all-pro guard, was taking a few picks after Aaron Banks.
Yeah.
So they had the right idea. They just can't whiff.
Yeah, I mean, they got to go. I mean, another guy and
Ben Barch isn't good enough. I'm sorry. You could sign him, but that's not enough. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. I mean, in the brief game and a half or whatever we had from Ben Barch, he looked good. But they have to address tackle
snaps from a guy.
The other thing though, they can't just ignore the tackle position. Like Colton McKivitz has improved. Look, Brendel was Brendel. I know everyone hates how I pronounce his name. Jesse said I'm the Charles.
I would never correct you on that. When he becomes a really good player, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, right. If he was like really good, I think I would know how to say his name correctly, right? So for now, it's whatever I say. It's Brendel. Anyways, he had an All-Pro season, Pro Bowl season 2 seasons ago, right? And then he fell off. I don't believe in Colton McKivitz still. I still don't believe in Colton McKivitz. I'm sorry. He had a better season than last year. Good for him. I'm happy for you, Colton. But I don't think he's the answer at right tackle. And Trent Williams, how many games are we going to get out of Trent Williams this coming season? They're not 9, 10, 11?
Yeah.
Like, they still have tackle issues that they have to address at some point too. So center, the only position that's solid as of right now that you can believe in 100% is right guard with Dom Pooney and Trent Williams when he's there. That's all the 49ers can really bank on with this offensive line and be comfortable with, in my opinion. They got to invest heavily in the trenches. Like, I would not be mad if this whole entire draft was defensive line, offensive line. Like, do it. I'll be thrilled with it.
Yeah, and like O-line in particular, in the sense that, like, look at Philly. Their D-line's really good too, and they've spent some first-round picks on that D, high first-round picks. But like, they've been good for like 10 years, and they've been good with a bunch of different quarterbacks who technically aren't good. Like, they won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, not a good quarterback. He was good for a minute. Why? He has this offense. The Philly has this cheat code. They have this offensive line that's usually the best. Lane Johnson was there for a long time, been there for a long time. Kelsey was there for a long time. Like, they really take it seriously. And so Nick Foles, good. Carson Wentz looked like an MVP for a minute. Kenny Pickett looked really good in relief. Freaking Tanner McKee was lighting them. I mean, That's their formula. And I think the Niners are looking at the Eagles as a sort of a blueprint for how they can bounce back. Oh, they lost in the Super Bowl and they had a down season and they got rid of their coordinators and look at them, they're back. Yeah, and they have the best offensive line in football. So you got to take it seriously. Otherwise, you're going to give all this money to Brock Purdy and he's going to get hurt again and he's going to keep losing and you're going to blame him.
It goes against their philosophy, though, Grant. Like, that's the thing is, like, I don't have much faith that they are looking at any team and learning about it because they've, when they first came to the 49ers, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they laid out their philosophy, and their philosophy was quarterback first and foremost, which you can debate whether or not they've done that well. And then defensive line, pass rush, not even the interior, the pass rush. That's their priority. And with the offensive line, they feel like they can find scheme fits, later round guys. They've talked about this stuff. This isn't my opinion. So do I think they're going to finally wake up and say, hey, we need to build this offensive line? I don't.
No, I don't either. But that's that's their problem. I mean, if they did have a Detroit's offensive line or Philly's offensive line, can make it work with Brock. They have plenty of weapons. I mean, that's the thing. They're spending so much money on weapons, but if they got Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk off the books and just rolled with McCaffrey, Kittle, Jennings, Pearsall, Cowing, that's more than enough. Yeah. More than enough. But they won't. They should be spending that money on offensive line and defensive line, but they're spending it on receivers who aren't necessarily great.
Not only do they prioritize pass rush over offensive line, they prioritize the weapons, the guys that get the ball in their hand. Those are things they've said. And that's back asswards compared to what the philosophies have been through for football in the NFL for years since the beginning.
Compare the Niners and the Broncos. Sean Payton just made the playoffs, got the brakes beaten off of him, but so did the Niners against the Bills. Goes to the playoffs with a rookie quarterback who's very Brock Purdy-esque, but that team won like 9 or 10 games, made the playoffs. And a big difference between them is that offensive line was freaking really good in Denver. Second best offensive line, or one of the top offensive lines in the league. And so were his weapons great? No, I couldn't. I mean, who the hell are his running backs? His number one receivers, Cortland Sutton. I mean, his receivers are whatever. But his offensive line is really good, and he had a better season, won more games than Brock Purdy, who had Hall of Fame tight end, one of the top wide receivers in the league, and an offense that was averaging 4.7 yards a carry.
Well, the Niners' philosophy, again, it's failed at the core of it, right? What they've said is, we believe in quarterbacks and the guys that go after the quarterbacks. Okay, what about the guys that protect the quarterback?
And the guys who score touchdowns.
Yeah, those are three they think, but they never mention the guys that protect the quarterback. They never mention it. It's their biggest failure in their philosophy as the front office of this team.
And let me list you off the top offensive lines in the league according to Pro Football Focus. Take it for what it's worth. But these are their top offensive lines in the league at the end of the season. Number 1, Philly. Number 2, Denver. Made the playoffs. Number 3, Tampa. Made the playoffs. Number 4, Detroit, still alive. Number 5, Buffalo, still alive. Number 6, Green Bay, made the playoffs. Number 7, Kansas City, still alive. Number 8, Carolina, interesting. Number 9, Baltimore, still alive. Number 10, Washington, still alive. I mean, 9 of the top 10 offensive lines made the playoffs. Best ones. And it seems like a pretty strong correlation.
I mean, it's not rocket science, man. Football is it's more complex than a lot of people give it credit for, but it's also just bigger, stronger, faster. That's what football boils down to a lot of the times, particularly in the trenches. People have known this since the beginning of the time. Like, the oldest expression in regards to football is the game is won in the trenches, right? Like, it's not like groundbreaking news that we're talking about here. This is something I've been screaming for 3 years. It's just goes against Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch have this philosophy that they think, they're zigging while everyone else is zagging, and they can get by with scheme fit offensive line players, and they just can't do that. Do me a favor, Grant. Like, I can't put you on the spot like this, but read off that list to Kyle Shanahan and ask him.
Yeah.
at what point is he going to actually invest in the offensive line?
Yeah, and you look at like the 3 best quarterbacks in the league: Lamar, Mahomes, Allen. They have, I mean, according to PFF, Allen has the 5th best offensive line. Mahomes has the 7th best offensive line, and Lamar has the 9th best offensive line. So even if you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, it's more important to give him time to throw than weapons to throw to, because you don't need to have Brandon Ayuk making $30 million. You can have Khalil Shakir and Mac Hollins and a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have a bunch of guys. And again, the Niners do have a bunch of guys. You could take Ayuk and Debo off the team and still have 5 guys to throw to.
Well, they understand they have franchise quarterbacks who they're paying a lot of money. Why wouldn't you? It's like you buy a Ferrari and you leave the thing with the keys in the ignition, door unlocked, and leave it in the hood. Like, no, you want to put the thing in a garage. You want cameras on the outside. You want an alarm system. Like, protect your investment. It doesn't make any sense. So if you're going to be paying Brock Purdy this kind of money, you damn well better protect him.
It's like people don't remember the Andrew Luck story. It wasn't that long ago. He was the number 1 pick in 2012. A lot of people thought he was the next Peyton Manning, the next John Elway. I mean, he was as highly regarded coming out of college as any quarterback ever. And he won the rookie of the year, his rookie year, I believe. I mean, he went to the playoffs his rookie year. He was that good. And the Colts just never, ever put a serious offensive line around him. They never took it seriously. And he just tapped out at like 29. It was like, this is bullshit. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Wow.
It's basic football, man. I don't understand why the Niners want to go against that philosophy. We'll see what they do in this draft. Maybe they learn their lesson. But I have a hard time believing Kyle Shanahan changes his mind on much. I think he thinks he has it all figured out and won't go vary from it.
I mean, you see the numbers a lot, like splits with a quarterback throwing under pressure or throwing from a clean pocket. Usually however you want to measure it, quarterback rating, QBR, EPA is like drastically higher, no matter who the quarterback is, when there's no pressure as opposed to when there is pressure. So if you could give your good, not great quarterback, or any freaking quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback, whomever, twice as many snaps a game where he has no pressure and throws, chances are his numbers are going to be drastically better. So why wouldn't you want to do that? Yeah, of course it matters having good weapons, but it's always better. We learned this from the Patriot years. It's better to have 4 good weapons than 1 all-pro weapon. It doesn't matter if you're spending hella money on your X receiver. You can double that guy. You need to have 4, and you don't need to spend money on all of them.
Do you know who else would enjoy a good O-line? Christian McCaffrey, because
thank you.
Running the ball would also it definitely benefits football teams.
Saquon Barkley sure is enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Jahmyr Gibbs sure likes it.
Right. And not only that, it's like that wins you games because you're these big dudes up front on the offensive line are wearing out the defense throughout the game. And by the 4th quarter, teams are tapping out because they're tired of going up against these dudes. It's like I've been saying it for years. I think a lot of people do. It's quarterback, offensive line. That's the order of priority for every team should be. Unfortunately, that goes against what the Niners believe for whatever reason.
You ever seen that movie Swingers?
I think I have. I don't have it memorized, but
it's with like Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. There's that scene where they're playing hockey, and like one team is the Chicago Blackhawks and one team is the Los Angeles, whatever, freaking. Oh man, what's the LA team that had? Anyway,
the Kings?
Gretzky on it. The Kings.
And
Vince Vaughn says he's beating the hell out of his friend who has the Kings, and he's like, "I'm not." He says, "They're a bitch team, bro." He goes, "They're a finesse team. They're a finesse team. They're a bitch team, bro." Right. I'm not saying the Niners a little bit of finesse, If you put touchdown scores over pass blockers, you're a finesse team. You just are, and you can win that way. But it seems like there's a lot of teams having success the other way, and it's a copycat league.
And the other thing is, I mean, while we're on this note, I know we're talking about offensive line, but after that, you have to stop the run. As a defense, you have to stop the run. One of the if Brock Purdy and the 49ers want to win a Super Bowl, they need to have a better offensive line, and then defense, they need to stop the run. That used to be their identity, And that's completely gone now. They don't have anybody in the middle that can stop the run, particularly if you're going to run this wide 9 scheme. You need guys that can eat up space. They need to go after these dudes. Invest in the freaking trenches this year, please. I'm begging you, 49ers.
And what's interesting about that is, like, it's not necessarily hard to get run defenders. Like, those are guys you can find in middle rounds. Those are guys who play 2 downs. They're not necessarily 3-down players. You can get that. Like, if you want to have a good defense, you don't necessarily have to invest a ton of money. You can get part-time run defenders and then scheme up pressure. That's another trend we're seeing. Instead of spending all your resources on 4 defensive linemen who are all first-round picks making $100 million, you don't need to do that. You can get run defenders. You can scheme up pressure with creative blitzes and spend your money on offensive line. That's another thing that the Niners are behind the times on.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
You want to run wide 9. These guys all have to be all pro players. So don't.